Okay, we'll start with this. Reigning WBA Super Bantamweight Champion of Mexico, Cruz, posted this to her social media with a caption that reads, "The Europeans are having their unification match. Let's make our own. Yemi Mercado. Let's start a war between Mexican women. Sign the contract and go to war."
Unifications are all the rage at Super Bantamweight right now because Matchroom just made the unification match between Ellie Scotney, IBF champion,
And Sigolene Lafarve, WBO champion.
Erica wants a unification match of her own.
Erica's last couple of fights have been under the Matchroom banner, so I'm going to assume that she's still with them because she went as far as tagging them to the post.
If anybody has the resources to make this kind of fight happen, it is Matchroom.
If anybody can pay to make it happen, make it worth Yemi Mercado's while. Yemi Mercado, who's the longest reigning champion at this weight, but also the youngest.
Yemi's 25, whereas Erica's 33.
But Yemi's been a champion at this weight a lot longer than Erica Cruz. Yemi Mercado first became WBC champion as of 2019, and she has reigned as a champion for 4, going on 5 years now, just about 5.
She's experienced.
As young as she is, she's just about as experienced as a fighter and as a champion as Erica Cruz. But it's not by accident. It's not for no reason that Erica Cruz is calling her out now. It's not by accident, it's by design. Knocking on Erica Cruz's door is her mandatory challenger by way of Argentina, unbeaten Nazarena Romero. And I've talked about that fight, talked about this one, given it a first look. There's a reason that Erica is pushing and pushing hard for this unification match, and it's because her mandatory challenger, Nazarena Romero, she's a high-risk, low-reward opponent. She's a pressure fighter, like Erica's a pressure fighter, but she seems to have more single punching power than Erica.
If nothing else, she's a handful. She's more trouble than she's worth. More trouble than she's worth, at least to Erica. Boxing fans living in extremes.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that Erica is afraid of Nazarena Romero. It's not fear.
Boxing fans often living in extremes and jumping to bold conclusions. I'm not suggesting that Erica is deathly afraid of Nazarena Romero, but she is a high-risk, low-reward. And for taking on an opponent that might beat you,
Try to unify.
Yemi might beat you, but there's more in it for you. A second alphabet title, more money. It stands to reason that if you're going to be in a difficult fight, it should be a fight where there's more in it for you. And there's more in it for Erica Cruz if she fights Yemi Mercado, a Mexican fighter, Mexican champion like herself, than defending the title against Nazarena Romero. The caveat is, even if you fight Yemi, and somehow you beat her, somehow you beat Yemi,
It's only a temporary fix.
that doesn't stop Nazarena Romero from being your mandatory challenger. So long as you're WBA champion and so long as she's in position, she's at your door. She wants what you've got. So you can go as far as pursuing a Yemi Mercado unification match, but it's only a momentary fix.
She's still there.
And it doesn't help that she's got Samson Lukowicz behind her. For those not aware, Nazarena Romero's promoter in this part of the world is the same guy who promotes David Benavidez and Sebastian Fundora, Gabriela Fundora.
Nazarena Romero.
He's pushing for her to get the shot.
Yes.
And he's been pushing for her to get the shot. The story is that the fight between them has to happen by no later than March of this year, giving Erica a very limited window of opportunity to see about doing a unification match instead. And for that, she would need Yamileth Mercado to play ball, because if she doesn't, and she doesn't want to, or she doesn't like the money, and they can't reach a deal, here comes Nazarena. So I told you, it's not by accident that Erica's calling Yemi out at this time. It's not by accident. It's by design. With the other two champions set to face each other very soon, the only champion out there for Erica to fight is Yemi. And the only way she can get around this mandatory is with a unification match.
It's if she fights Yemi. But as stated, it's only a momentary fix.
You stay WBA champion, she's still your problem. You still have to deal with her at some point. And I don't see too many people in a hurry to deal with Nazarena. Her volume punching, her aggression, her single punching power, what looks to be one of the strongest punchers, if not the strongest puncher, at this weight.
She's a handful, and for Erica Cruz, she's more trouble than she's worth. So naturally, she's exploring her options.
She's running out of time. Men's super middleweight news, Canelo Alvarez made his big announcement on Azteca Deportes earlier today, and the recap of that announcement was he's returning May 4th, as expected, in Las Vegas versus an American rival, not a Mexican.
Dispelling all those rumors and rumblings about a Munguia fight in May.
He's signed on to Azteca TV for 1 more year to show his fights free in Mexico. Networks want Mexican pay-per-view, and Canelo told them no. Canelo plans to fight for another 5 more years. The big announcement, as it were, wasn't all that big of an announcement at all. And the real story there is that there was mounting pressure from the American networks to start doing pay-per-view south of the border. Canelo saying they're always switching TV networks on him in the United States. That those same networks always want to bring pay-per-view to Mexico for his fights, and he doesn't ever want to do that. He maintains his fights shall always be free for the public in Mexico.
So for at least 1 more year, he's going to be with Azteca, and as usual, his fights are going to be free. The more interesting part of the big announcement was that his rival, his next opponent, it won't be a Mexican, it won't be Jaime Munguia, it will be an American.
Yesterday, I saw that Ring Magazine published an article via their own sources that his next opponent is going to be Jermall Charlo. And I'm still holding out hope. I'm still hoping that it's some other American, somebody else. Terrence Crawford, maybe.
Jermall Charlo sucks.
He's a piece of shit, that guy is. You couldn't knock out Jose Benavidez? The same Jose Benavidez that Terrence Crawford knocked out years ago at welterweight, back when he was an unbeaten fighter? You couldn't knock him out years later?
Jermall Charlo sucks.
According to Canelo, his next opponent won't be from Mexico, it'll be an American, so could be Jermall Charlo, could be Terrence Crawford, maybe David Benavidez. David Benavidez is not a Mexican national. He wasn't born in Mexico. He's from Arizona.
But as stated, according to Ring Magazine via their own sources, his next opponent is going to be Jermall.
Which unfortunately, based on what we've seen from Canelo over the years, he does have a thing for beating up guys and their brothers. He beat up both the Cotto brothers,
2 of the Smith brothers,
Callum Smith, Liam Smith. He beat Ricky Hatton's brother many years ago.
Matthew Hatton.
He's already beat up one of the Charlo brothers, so now he might end up beating up the other one.
But he sucks.
Jermall Charlo, at this point in his career, in spite of him being an unbeaten fighter and a still reigning middleweight champion, is little more than cannon fodder for any inspired super middleweight, any inspired fighter, any fighter with a pulse. I mean, I'd pick Christian Mabili to plow through this guy, David Benavidez or David Morrell.
Let alone Canelo.
The highlight of Jermall Charlo's entire boxing career across 3 divisions is knocking out an unproven Julian Williams years ago at 154. He hasn't done a hell of a lot since then.
He beat Sergey Didivianchenko.
Oh, he did? Was that before or after Gennady Golovkin and Daniel Jacobs beat him?
Give me a break.
Went life or death with Juan Macias Montiel, then absconded for about 2.5 years, didn't fight, didn't defend his title, didn't do anything, comes back and goes the distance with Jose Benavidez, and for that, Canelo wants to give him a shot at undisputed.
I'm sorry, I'm a big Canelo Alvarez fan, but I can't support this. I can't support this fight.
Terrence Crawford or David Benavidez? I can go for that. That if his next opponent is in fact going to be an American, I could go for either Terrence Crawford, now that he's not fighting Errol Spence Jr. in a rematch, or the David Benavidez fight. Those 2 fights I can go for, but
Jermall sucks.
You already fought Jermell, and you saw how he stunk out the joint. For all the hullabaloo about the Charlo brothers, you saw the uninspiring performance from Jermell. What the fuck do you think Jermall is gonna do?
Come on.
Sorry, I'm a big Canelo Alvarez fan, but I can't support that fight.
What about all that stuff we were hearing about him potentially leaving the PBC?
All that stuff we were hearing that the PBC can't finance his guarantee because Amazon hasn't made a financial commitment to the PBC. Thus, they have no money to guarantee the fighters. All that stuff that Rick Glacier was talking about. What about that stuff?
This announcement doesn't necessarily dispel that.
Not necessarily, but a part of what lent credence to the notion that Canelo Alvarez might be leaving the PBC was all those rumors and rumblings about a Munguia fight that, if you're with the PBC, why are you looking at a Golden Boy Promotions fighter unless you're leaving the PBC and going back to DAZN? But now that we know He's not fighting Munguia. He's not going to fight a Mexican fighter in his next fight.
Kind of takes the air out of the tires.
Canelo's announcement today didn't necessarily dispel those rumors.
But it didn't confirm them either.
Let's just operate on the assumption that Canelo Alvarez's next fight will be on Amazon Prime via his existing deal with the PBC. That doesn't really change much about their situation, does it? They still don't have a heck of a lot going on. That 3 months into this year, they only plan on doing one show. And that they are operating at a reduced capacity because this time last year, they had about 5 shows lined up from January into March, whereas this year, they only have one, and it's a pay-per-view.
So even if they're lucky enough to still have Canelo Alvarez for 2 more fights, they don't seem to have much else.
And if his next fight turns out to be a Charlo fight?
Come on.
I'm a big Canelo Alvarez fan, but if he ends up fighting Jermall Charlo, what do you expect me to say? What am I supposed to be? Am I supposed to be excited? Because I'm not.
Charlo sucks.
What the hell are you fighting him for? You just fought his twin brother. I don't expect the other brother to do any better. Hell, he's even more unstable than Jermell.
Crawford or Benavidez, I can go for that, but not Jamal.
He's always been another Ameribum, an Ameriscrub, a hype job.
Why should he get a crack at Undisputed?
There's no way this fight happens without Canelo wanting it to happen, and I will have some harsh criticisms for Canelo if it does.
Because you're not one of these guys Al Heyman has his thumb on.
Voluntarily fight this guy, you're wasting everybody's time. And just in keeping with the theme of major announcements, one rumor that did end up checking out, a rumor we've been hearing the last 2 weeks or so, Subriel Matias has signed to Matchroom for what is a multi-fight deal. Matchroom that has quite a few prized stallions in that super lightweight show, that super lightweight division. You have Richardson Hitchens, you have Jack Catterall, you have Dalton Smith, Regis Prograis. They seem to have a good working relationship with Devin Haney.
You see, it's not that they didn't have anything to offer him at the PBC. They had Rolly Romero, now Isaac Cruz, Gary Antoine Russell, Elvis Rodriguez.
Come on, those last 2 guys are no-hopers.
Well, that's the point.
You're not going to stay on a particular side of the street so that you can land a Gary Antoine Russell fight or a Elvis Rodriguez fight. The issue was the biggest fights the PBC could provide for him weren't fights that they were going to provide. They weren't going to put Rolly in there with him or Gervonta Davis. What they did offer him weren't guys at 140. They offered him 2 guys at 147. Montes Stanionis.
What?
Jaron Boots Ennis.
Huh?
You want Subriel Matias to leave 140 when it's very hot right now, when you have names there like Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez.
You want him to do what exactly? Leave his title behind, his IBF title, so that he could go up to 147 to fight for Boots.
If you ask me, that accommodates Jaron Boots Ennis a lot more than it accommodates Subriel Matias. That's not a big fight for Subriel Matias. That's not a big money fight.
But this is what they offered him.
Say he doesn't take a Stanionis fight and he doesn't take a Boots fight. He tells him he wants to stay there, but he wants to stay at 140. How long would it have taken them to get him back out there, to keep him busy, to keep him active? There's more than one virtue to crossing over to Matchroom. It's not just their stable of 140-pounders. It's that they have fight dates. More fight dates in more territories, more regions around the world than the PBC. They're not just operating out of the UK or operating out of America. They're doing fights in Mexico, Australia, Saudi,
Japan now.
And the rumor was that they would be doing a homecoming fight for Subriel in his native Puerto Rico. So it's not just about the stable of fighters and who's available.
It's about the availability of fight dates as well.
You think about Subriel Matias as a fighter. He's an action fighter. He's a pressure guy, an aggressive one, and a dangerous one. The kind of fighter that's made for TV. A real crowd pleaser.
And you guys didn't know how to promote him?
You don't know who to market him to. A Puerto Rican fighter from the island of Puerto Rico, not a Philly Rican or a New York-Rican, a Puerto Rican from Puerto Rico.
And you guys didn't know how to promote him?
You didn't know who to market him to? You're not aware that there's a large Puerto Rican contingent in the tri-state area and you could do Subriel's fights out of either the Hulu Theater or the Barclays Center?
You didn't know that there's a lot of Puerto Ricans in New York City and they're very proud. They're a very proud people. They take every opportunity to tell you how Puerto Rican they are. You didn't know that?
So, like, are you stupid or something?
Are you on the spectrum?
You're always hearing guys like Leonard Ellaby talk about all their experience, all their fucking experience, and you didn't know what to do with an action fighter of Puerto Rican descent who's good for a knockout in almost every single fight.
You didn't know what to do.
Wow.
Well, the PBC's loss is Matchroom's gain, because Matchroom knows what to do. They know exactly what they're doing when they give him a homecoming fight, a hometown fight in his native Puerto Rico in front of all those fiercely loyal Puerto Rican fans.
And all of their fiercely loyal Puerto Rican wallets. Story was that he would be facing Liam Paro in his very next fight in his native Puerto Rico, and provided that he stays champion and stays in the winner's bracket, you could do a Regis Prograis fight right after that. That's still a good fight. That's still a fan-friendly fight. The hard-punching counterpuncher versus the volume puncher.
Yeah.
I could go for that.
Yeah.
Granted that this probably doesn't bring him closer to a Lopez fight, because Teofimo, he's over there on the top-ranked side of things. So going to Matchroom doesn't bring him closer to that fight, but it might bring him closer to a Devin Haney fight. Devin Haney, who has a great working relationship with Matchroom. His last fight was under the Matchroom banner.
On DAZN.
And his next fight, the fight with Ryan Garcia, that's on DAZN. So going to Matchroom will at least bring Subriel a bit closer to a Devin Haney fight. And we'll see if Devin and Bill...
Devin's father.
We'll see if they keep the same energy. We'll see if this is a fight that they really want. It's exciting news. And to think that the most that the PBC could come up with for Subriel Matias is to move him up to 147, put him in there with Stanionis, put him in there with Boots.
The fuck, are you stupid or something?
People often ask me why I'm always ragging on the PBC, and time again I have to tell them it's the decisions that they make. It's that these are not serious people of substance. They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
You need a bigger example than this one?
Well, you're in luck, because I got one for you. They didn't get kicked off of Showtime and Fox because of what great business or what great numbers they were doing.
You don't get kicked off that many networks that many times because of your conscientious decisions.
Guys don't know what they're doing over there, man. The saving grace is that Subriel's not over there anymore, so that's not his problem. This is one fighter that won't go to waste.
One fighter whose career won't die on a vine.